Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Victory Green Hour number 5 as the Philadelphia Eagles remain undefeated, defeating the Los Angeles Rams 23 to 14 in week 5 as the Eagles are one of two undefeated teams, the other being the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm not looking ahead, but I'm praying both teams stay healthy when we get to that December 3rd matchup, which is the day after my birthday. And if I'm able to go, I would love to go. I'm your host, LJ Hero, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. What's up, Connor?
Not much, man. It was a week, another week gone in football, and the season continues to shrink and shrink, which is crazy to think. But it
Third of the
was
way through the season. It's ridiculous.
it a win's a win, and I think that was one of the better all-around games by the team, especially after halftime for the defense. So let's just dive
Shoot,
right in.
it was after about midway through the second quarter for the defense where the Rams, I don't know if they got past the midfield or if they did. They didn't finish a drive past midfield. It was ridiculous. Actually, before we do continue, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. You can follow me on Twitter at LJRaw54. And follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports. Or check out the website, eopsports.com. And if you want to look up any of the Kelly Green Hour past episodes on YouTube, just type in Kelly Green Hour and we should pop up. And if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts on the Eagles' victory over the Rams. And you know who your player of the game was, what the play of the game was, and the big aspects of the game that you thought were important to an Eagles victory. Offense. I want to start with the offense. Connor, Jalen had his best passing game of the season. He looked like 2022 Jalen. There was one play though that worried me. It was 3rd and 7. I think it was the second half. 3rd and 7, and he ran it. He got hit, kind of split a double team, but his knee or leg, like it looked like he tore his ACL. It was bad, and he just kept running. I was worried at that point, but he stayed in the game, continued to have a strong game. Yeah, he threw an interception, but you know, he had a really good game through the air, over 300 yards passing, a season high in rushing yards. I think when he had 72, 75 yards rushing. You cannot overstate how good of a game Jalen Hurts played against the Rams.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely by far his best game, despite the interception. And one of the things that I pointed out was we finally saw Jalen Hurts running with authority, like he actually wanted to run, and like he ran in prior seasons, which was huge because that's something me and you've been begging for and saying stop protect him with to a certain degree. But the way they were protecting him was the guy would go down and slide like a very inexperienced baseball player sliding in their plate. It was really quite sad to watch. So as soon as he came out, those first few runs where I was like, man, this is Jalen Hurts. He's back. And then he goes and throws for 300 yards. And Dallas Goedert as well. I think that's where you thought it was going originally. Getting Dallas Goedert involved was huge. I mean, did it cost, a Devontae Smith game? Potentially, because Devontae Smith didn't do a whole lot. He had a pretty bad drop at one point in the game as well. But he was targeted 5 times, A.J. Brown 8 times, and Dallas Goedert 9 times, DeAndre Swift 6 times. So there was some really good spreading of the football, which is what we wanted. What we've been wanting to see from Jalen Hurts and from this offense, because it always feels like we're talking about this guy or that guy's game. It's an A.J. Brown game. It's a Devontae Smith game. And it was a DeAndre Swift game. But this felt like a pretty complete game because this was a Jalen Hurts game. This was a DeAndre Swift game. This was a Dallas Goedert game. This was an A.J. Brown game. And we haven't even touched on the defense yet. But that was an all-around really good game from the offense. And I mean, I'll segue you into the offensive line because that was an absolute clinic by the offensive line.
Very good. Aaron Donald, he has yet to sack an Eagles quarterback in his career. They did a great job. Sua Opeta deserves a lot of credit. Again, just doing an outstanding job filling in for Cam Jurgens. Dickerson and Kelsey, I don't think they gave up any pressures the entire game. And it was like, it's very rare. And obviously, the cameras don't show everything, but the cameras did show on the sideline when Kelsey was showing his emotion, getting a little frustrated with the red zone offense. When he was talking to being animated with Sirianni and then animated with Stoutland. You never see that. Then there was another part where you saw Devontae Smith walking down the sideline because he wasn't happy that he wasn't getting any throws, and then Nick Sirianni kind of going up to him, like letting him know, look, we need you, stay in it. Even if this isn't your game, we're still going to come back to you. We have a 12 games left. Like you still have an opportunity. So obviously, when you have as much talent as the Eagles have on their offense, not everybody's going to be able to touch the ball. We talk about it all the time, and you got to find a way to keep everybody healthy. And we just hope that. And I never thought that I would see Devontae Smith be the guy that's going to be. I don't want to say he was pouting. I don't think he was pouting on the sideline, but kind of upset that his number wasn't being called. Obviously, being a receiver, I'm not saying he's not a diva receiver, obviously, but being a receiver, you want the ball thrown your way. You want your number called. And unfortunately, this game, it didn't happen. And in upcoming games like this week against the Jets, you would think Sauce Gardner is going to be up against A.J. Brown. I think Devontae Smith is going to be able to win his matchup against DJ Reed. So hopefully, this upcoming week could be a Devontae Smith game. And obviously, we'll talk about that later this week. But just the way that the offensive line handled the Rams, front four and Aaron Donald. I think Hurts got sacked once or twice, if I'm not mistaken. I know
it was sacked one time. It wasn't attributed to the offensive line, though. I think it was
he held on to the ball
Hurts himself. So
he held on to the ball a long time that play. I want to talk about that drive before halftime. I think they have 32 seconds left. That pass from Hurts to A.J. Brown, which he snagged with one hand, that was crazy. That was a perfect pass right where it needed to be. A.J. Brown trusting his athletic ability and trusting his hands, and then being able to get down the field. And then also, I was screaming for him to get down because I thought there was about 10 seconds left on the clock. I just didn't want the clock to run out. I wanted them to have the opportunity to go to the end zone a couple times. And then the next play, he got the pass interference. It was underthrown ball by Hurts, probably purposely, who knows, and he was able to get the call, and then they were able to push it into the end zone for 7 or for 6. So, I mean, that drive, the Eagles offense, even if they haven't been clicking on all cylinders, just like that, 32 seconds, they can go 75 yards and put the ball into the end zone. So, it feels like Brian Johnson's finally in a rhythm. Brian Johnson's getting comfortable with what he should call in certain situations with Jalen Hurts. And this offense, man, if they can continue with this, they've gotten better, I feel like, every game. If they can continue that, I mean, the sky's going to be the limit for this offense.
Yeah, definitely. And the way they just impose their will on teams is crazy. You look at the time of possession in this game, and no wonder the Rams couldn't get more points on the board. No wonder their defense looked just gassed. The defense was out there for 37 minutes, and the offense for the Rams was out there for 22 minutes. That's it. They nearly doubled the time of possession. And that was and the broadcast crew did a good job of talking about that and noting that, because you saw them and they were the defense was hands on their hips, just struggling, just trying to give it every drive. But this offense is so hard to keep up with when they orchestrate. I think there was 3 drives. If not, there was one drive of 8 minutes. There was one drive of 6 minutes. There was one drive of 5 minutes and 50 seconds, 2 8-minute drives. So 2 8-minute drives, a 6-minute drive, a 5-minute drive. What can you even do as a defense when you're out there for 17? One of it was 17 plays for 83 yards, and it took 8 minutes and 9 seconds. This felt like watching when Chip Kelly was our head coach, and our defense was just on the field constantly and just getting exhausted, because teams knew the strategy to beat the Eagles back then was just take your time and pound it at the defense until they're exhausted, they can't do anymore, and they just give up the points. And that's kind of what it felt like against the LA Rams. 23-14 kind of seems like a lower score than anticipated. The Rams defense was okay, but definitely not good, because it was just a drive time. The possession, it was just continuous and over again. And that strategy by Brian Johnson to do this, and they mentioned it in prior games as well, is a really good idea, a really smart idea. Get some points on the board, get yourself comfortable, a 2-score lead, and then just run the clock down, or try and get sustained long drives. Because there was that 17-play drive, there was a 10-play drive, there was a 15-play drive, a 12-play drive. Like, you can't stop an offense. You can't do anything on defense if those drives are being sustained like that. And we just saw it. And if we can continue to do that all year, it doesn't really matter what offense you're facing, because they're not going to get on the field enough to do anything. But some of the drives for the Eagles have frustratingly not ended in scores. They should have ended in scores. So obviously, as if we can end drives with scores, it's even better, even more important. And then you're getting more comfortable leads. A 2-score lead is nice, but it's only 10 points usually, a touchdown and a field goal or something. It never feels like a truly comfortable lead.
Yeah, that is the big. That is the big worry right now with the offense, is their red zone offense. Well, they can move the ball between the 20s, but then when they get inside the 20, they did score the touchdown to the first drive. They scored with the touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert. The end of the first half, they scored with the tush push with Jalen Hurts. So they did have a couple of red zone scores, but they were in the red zone, I think 6 or 7 times, and only came away with the 2 touchdowns. So you think if you, instead of field goals, you put up 2 more touchdowns, you have 30 points on the board. And the Eagles offense is already averaging close to 29 points, if not more than 29 points. I don't know off the top of my head a game. So, I mean, they could be in the 30s easily if the red zone was going. Look, we all trust Jake Elliott, but I don't want to see Jake Elliott out there kicking field goals when you get into the red zone. I'd much rather the ball go into the end zone and have him kick the extra point. Obviously, there were a lot of positives with the offense, but a negative that I want to talk about, Quez Watkins needs to not be on the field as much as possible. The one pass play where it was 3rd and 1, was it 3rd and 3 or something? They threw it to him on the outside. He had 2 blocks. He had AJ and Devontae blocking. You could run straight, run upfield, split them. You easily get the first down. What does he do? He runs outside and gets taken out of bounds, loses yard. That should not happen. If that's Olamide Zaccheaus, he gets a first down. If that's anybody else, they probably get a first down. I don't know what it is with Quez Watkins. They love him for some reason. He need his share, his play. Yeah, like they need to flip him and Zaccheaus. Zaccheaus played 9 snaps, if that, and Quez played a lot more. I don't want to see that. I don't. When he's on the field, I feel like they force it to him sometimes, and I don't understand why. He's the 3rd or 4th receiver, 4th probably. I mean, I would say the 4th for a reason. He's not the guy that I'm trying to force feed the ball to, because I feel like whenever they do, nothing good happens. I mean, there was the one play that Jalen had him wide open, didn't even look at him. Are you shocked you didn't look at him? No, I mean, I'm not. He's the 3rd or 4th option that I'm looking at. And Jalen was moving out to the right. So, and you don't really want a quarterback throwing across his body, but dude needs to stop running to the outside, use your speed, get upfield, split the blocks, get the first down, and move on. But because he didn't do that, they weren't able to continue that drive and get a touchdown.
Yeah, you said it there, because Quez Watkins 52 snaps, Olamide Zaccheaus 9. It's really frustrating to see that, and that was one thing. This is just a true sign of just the Eagles loving a guy and just not being able to give up, not being able to quit. It's just a bad drug for them. And they do it every year with somebody. There's at least one offensive player, there's at least one defensive player, and they just can never seem to give up on these players. And Kenneth Gainwell, similar thing. He was 7 carries for 17 yards, 2 targets, 1 reception for 7 yards. I don't really need to see any more from him. I don't need to see that much more from Gainwell, especially inside the 20. Especially inside the 2-minute drill. I don't need to see Gainwell out there, and I don't know why they continue to put him out there like that in those situations when you know the guy who's going to give you the play, the guy who's going to be able to make you something out of that backfield is DeAndre Swift, and he has proven it literally since week 2. And he probably could have proven it week 1 if Gainwell didn't take all the lion's share work.
And I agree with you with that. Sirianni did talk, I think it was today, and the question was raised to him about the workload for Swift, and is it too much right now? Because if you don't take week 1 into account, he's averaging, I think, around 20 touches a game. If you take week 1 into account, he's averaging about 15. And we know his history. So I can't, and I agree with you. I don't want to see, especially like if they're going to run the football up the middle, like why is it Kenny Gainwell? They love that play for some reason, and it frustrates me. But you don't want DeAndre. I know this is a contract year for him. The chances of the Eagles bringing Swift back, obviously there's a lot to think about because we know how the Eagles value or devalue running backs, or the NFL in general devalues running backs. But excuse me, that's where it gets interesting. Like I do want Swift to have the ball, but I also don't want him to get hurt.
And and see, my thing is, I'm okay with Gainwell being out there, and he played 30 snaps. Swift played 49, but no Boston Scott. Rashad Penny, healthy scratch again. Like, there's other guys that you can also get involved in the game, and I don't think Rashad Penny's been one of the best yards per carry guys in the NFL over the last 2 or 3 seasons, and why he can't be out there, it puzzles me, especially when you're not even using Boston Scott. He didn't even touch the field at all. 0 snaps on offense. I mean, he probably was out there maybe for a kickoff return or something. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I'm fine with it. It's just a situational frustration for me is what is annoying. Use him in between the 20s all you want. Run him on first down all you want. But I think, second down, third and short situations, 2-minute drills inside the 20s, that has to belong to DeAndre Swift because he can make the plays happen. He can be the big play guy. He can take that ball from 18 yards out and get you a touchdown easy inside the red zone. Kenneth Gainwell can't. He just kind of goes right up the middle, gets you 3 or 4 yards, and that's it. Then and it's just frustrating. It's almost useless to have Gainwell out there. And so, I mean, there's 2 there. It's Gainwell and Watkins. For me, Watkins, I've seen more than enough. I gave him the benefit of the doubt heading into this season that maybe he could do something. Maybe he could be something. Maybe it was just a down year last year. But he can't do anything at all, and he's getting such little touches. Olamide Zaccheaus, he got 3 targets one game and caught 2 of them, and one of them was a touchdown. That's what you need to be able to do as a wide receiver 3 in an offense where you're going to be on the field for, 50, 60 snaps a game, but you're only going to get a touch 2 to 4 times in the game. You have to make those touches count, and Quez Watkins absolutely cannot make the touches count.
I'm pretty sure he missed a block on a attempted screenplay. If I'm not mistaken, it went out to Smith. I'm vaguely remembering that. So, yeah, he didn't have a good game. Levin Bailey, thank you for joining us. Go Birds. I'm going to say that's what you're that's a bird, right? Yeah, that's it. That's an eagle.
That's an eagle. That's an eagle.
That's an eagle. Thank you for joining us. I want to jump over to the defense now. Fletcher Cox didn't play, but good Lord, Jalen Carter is the man. He's a freak. He's an animal. He's a beast. I don't know how many superlatives I can throw out. He had an awesome game. He had 2 sacks, getting pressure all day. The Rams had, I think, 54 yards rushing against the Eagles. Like, they couldn't run the football. They scored 14 points in the first, quarter and a half. That first drive was all Cooper Kupp, it felt like. And it was ridiculous how wide open, or, we talked about what would the Rams do with Cooper Kupp? Probably put him in the slot and let him be against whether it's Bradbury or Roby. But it ended up being like Mario Goodrich to start, and then Eli Ricks, who I was surprised. I'm happy that he got onto the field. And I was shocked that they put him in the slot. And he apparently was working in the slot in training camp. He spent about half his time on the slot, half his time on the outside. And I'm happy for – he's a kid that I think has a bright future. Obviously, your first extensive game action is going up against one of the best route runners in the league in Cooper Kupp. But I think after, the first quarter and a half, Sean Desai deserves major kudos for the adjustments that he made. He made great adjustments, and again, the last 2.5 quarters, the Rams couldn't do anything on offense, and just he deserves a lot of credit. The Eagles deserve a lot. The Eagles defense deserves a lot of credit. Darius Slay didn't have his greatest game. He kind of needs to pick it up a little bit, but you got to give credit where credit is due. The Eagles defense played outstanding on Sunday.
Yeah, I wish I knew how to put it on the screen, but there was a tweet by a fellow EOP teammate, Shane Haff. He posted it earlier today about Jalen Carter. He said, 26 defensive tackles drafted in the first round in the last 10 years. Only 4 of them have had 3.5 sacks or more in an entire season. And Jalen Carter has 3.5 sacks in 5 games. And I think it was like 60% plus of the time he's double teamed when he's on the field. Like, that's crazy that he's still able to do this. That he's still able, like, he had 3 pressures, 2 sacks on this game on 39 snaps, which is wild to think about. Like, that's still wildly impressive. He did get the opportunity to play a little bit more, not as much as I thought, but he played well. Milton Williams actually played pretty well. He was involved in a few plays there. Hassan Reddick coming to life without that cast has been huge. Those 2 sacks, I think it was pretty much back to back, or one play separated them. It was great. It was very nice. So he had 5 total pressures, 2 sacks. That was huge for Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, that fourth quarter, getting them in the fourth quarter was crazy. And after he got that last one, SoFi sounded like the link. It was crazy how loud the fans.
We didn't get to talk about that, but that was not a road game. There's no way you're telling me that was a road game. That was easily 60% Eagles fans.
Oh, maybe more.
I wouldn't be surprised. And then you talked about like the struggles of Darius Slay. Okay, Darius Slay, you have to understand that some regression is probably to be expected with each coming year. You're not going to get. I think the best year we will ever see out of Slay was probably last year. That was a truly elite year. He probably bet some really good ones in Detroit too when he was a lot younger. But now that he's aging, you have to expect this regression, especially when he's going to be tagged with the number 1 or the number 2 receiver literally on every play. So obviously he was targeted 6 times, 3 receptions, 59 yards. He was from a yardage perspective, he was the worst defender. From a coverage perspective, Mario Goodrich gave up all 5 of his targets for 49 yards. He was the second worst. But otherwise, they all played pretty well. Like James Bradbury only allowed 28 yards on 2 receptions. Bradley Roby had a great night. He allowed 2 receptions for negative 4 yards. Like, that was an incredible game by Bradley Roby.
He came off the street on Wednesday, had to learn the defense, and then got out there and he covered Cooper. They put him on Cooper Kupp a couple of times, and Cooper Kupp couldn't get away from him. Like, that's a great signing by Howie Roseman. And kudos to Bradley Roby for staying in shape and being like, that's hard. You're working out and being in shape is different than being in football shape. Being in football shape is a totally different monster, but Bradley Roby deserves a lot of credit, and that it was outstanding that he was able to come in, and now he gets the full week, and he'll get to potentially be the starter at nickel now going forward, going up against like if the Jets. I mean, Garrett Wilson could potentially line up in the slot. Allen Lazard could potentially line up in the slot. So, like, he's going to get some work, but I have faith in him more than I would say a Mario Goodrich or, a Josh Jobe or somebody like that.
And he played the most snaps in the slot. And I think personally, the only reason he didn't play more was because he just came off the streets on Wednesday. He probably only knew about half of the playbook, but he played really well. And then you saw, Justin Evans had 12 in the slot, but he can probably go anytime now as well. Mario Goodrich, 13, Eli Ricks, 13. So they really kind of spread it out between the cornerbacks with every intention of Bradley Roby wasn't fully prepared to be playing. And he definitely looked the part of being fully prepared to play and ready to step into that Avonte Maddox role. And those 3, Slay, Bradbury, and Roby, being the core 3 guys for the rest of the year. Fingers crossed that there'll be no more injuries. Those guys can be your core guys, and you can trust them to move between the number 1, number 2, number 3 receiver. You can use them interchangeably around the field, and you can definitely trust them. So it'll be really interesting to see going forward if Bradley Roby gets that full-time starting job there. But I would, if not next week, he's going to get more looks next week than he did this week. And then in the 3rd week there, he's going to be full go.
Dolphins.
Not 90% of snaps or more. So definitely going to happen. And I forgot it was even the Dolphins, but that's the best game to have your trio hopefully fully healthy and good to go, because you're going to need all the help from a cornerback perspective for that game.
If Howie could go out there and get another safety, man, like this, the front four is obviously legit. You would hope that your corners are legit too. Obviously, a little older, but like we would expect them to play a little bit better. The way Cunningham and
Linebackers look good with Dean
Morrow are
coming back.
playing, with Dean coming back, like that's if you can get another safety, this defense should take a huge step forward. And look, they got better this week compared to the Washington game. You expect them to continue to take a step against the Jets because I don't know if Zach Wilson is. I don't think Zach Wilson's good enough. But you want to have a lot of confidence going into that Miami game, where the Dolphins are bringing speed, and more speed, and with a lot of creativity from Mike McDaniel. If the Eagles can go out there, the Broncos might have a fire sale. Maybe you can get a Justin Simmons. I doubt it, but you never know. A Jeremy Chin, a Buda Baker, somebody, a safety out there that that can help the Vikings. They could go to fire sale. Maybe get a Harrison Smith. Probably not, but he's a little bit older. But still, I'm like thinking outside the box here. If you can get somebody to pair with Reed Blankenship, because I think by process of elimination he's our best safety. Doesn't say much, but he is playing well. You set up this defense for a legit run. Obviously, this team is good. This defense is good. They're 5-0. But when you get into this gauntlet of a schedule we have coming up starting in 2 weeks, that could set it up for real success going forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you know what? At this point, I'm fine with the rental. You don't need a young safety who's going to be the core beside Reed Blankenship, because we know the thought, the idea of how he invests in a position where he's already got a load of confidence in Reed Blankenship. He's going to put another number one safety beside him. Probably unlikely. So I'm fine with like a rental piece if Harrison Smith is a piece and they're able to get that fire sale, because I mean, Justin Jefferson being shut down was massive. Like the fact that he's going down for 4 weeks on an injury that a lot of people assumed he'd only be gone like a week or two. And then the rumors of Kirk Cousins possibly being dealt, it screams like how we should be picking up the phone and checking in on people on that defense and seeing if he can get anything there. Like you said, the Broncos are all but ready. Like, I think they're one more loss away from a full-blown fire sale. So, I mean, hopefully, fingers crossed. If he could get Justin Simmons, that's wild, because then your safeties are set up for probably 3 or 4 years. I think there's probably some financial wiggling that needs to be done.
It's how we
got the magician himself, so I'm not really worried about that. But yeah, and then the linebackers, like that Dean coming back. I know everyone's like, what do you like? What do you do? What do we think? I think you roll with Cunningham and you roll with Morrow until they give you reason not to. And Dean is the third linebacker. That's just that's just what it is. Even when Dean was there, builds depth. And even when Dean was there in the preseason and for the one game that he was there, he definitely wasn't looking ready. But Cunningham, he's experienced, he's ready. Morrow, he's more experienced than Dean, and he looks way more ready. So Dean, if he's a guy who jumps in there on 15-ish snaps per game, so be it. And eventually he can build up, and hopefully he proves that in 15 or 20 snaps he can do a lot with a little, unlike other people on this team. So hopefully that works. But I agree with you. I mean, honestly, we're going to talk about more as the weeks go on, especially as we see 2 or 3 teams lining up ready to like full-blown unload and rebuild. We need another safety, and I am perfectly fine with Justin Evans or Terrell Edmonds having to get the chop to make it work, because I'm fine with them going away. Whatever dead money you have to eat, it's fine. I know Evans is more of a special teams guy, so he probably won't go, but I'm fine with Edmonds going. Like, whatever you have to do to make the room for that true second safety who has to step in the building. You only need 3 safeties. If you can get a guy beside Reed Blankenship who can play nearly 100% of snaps like Reed is, you're fine. You don't even really need to stress having depth at the safety position. So hopefully, Gary Sheldon, we need Buda Baker. We talk about Buda Baker every week like we think something's going to happen there, but
I think it's more of a hope.
The fact he restructured the deal, I don't think he's leaving. And then the fact that he is playing for Jonathan Gannon, I don't think is happening either.
And they're actually playing well, and he's not playing. They're actually playing better than we all thought they would be playing. Gary, we did talk about Roby. He definitely has made a difference and will make a difference going forward when he learns this complete defense. But yeah, like when it comes to Buda, I mean, obviously he had a lot of really great things to say about Sirianni and about the Eagles. and but then he got thrown on to IR, and then before that he restructured his contract. So the thought of that happening is a little tough. And the Jonathan Gannon factor, we don't think he would want to do business with the Eagles, but you never know. If you throw a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, maybe that'll entice them. But again, I think the Niners being 5-0 though, and them being 3 or 4 games out of the division right now, kind of puts them in a bind. And if they really want to try to lose out, I mean, there's a lot of bad teams right now in the NFL. If they lose out, they could potentially get, Caleb Williams.
We just mentioned 2 names: Justin Simmons as part of a fire sale in Denver, and Harrison Smith in Minnesota, because I mean, at this point, I don't know what the holdup is in Denver. You guys, it's over. You guys, and then Minnesota, like, you guys have been trying this, semi-rebuild kind of contending thing. But last year, it was the first time in NFL history a team had a winning record with a negative point differential. That told you all you needed to know last year, that the end was near in this. I don't know if they think it's a magical type of run that they were trying to make. I think it's over. You got to move. The Kirk Cousins thing is done. I think it's time that you just embrace the rebuild. But I mean, I'm not a Minnesota fan. Maybe there's something there. But yeah, we thought that, and then we've said Jeremy Chin in prior weeks as well. If they're interested in moving him, and he's not really doing what they want him to do. But we know how he's not going to go huge. So, I feel like Harrison Smith would be more realistic, or Jeremy Chin would be more realistic than Simmons, who's on a big deal already. I feel like he's more realistic to look to the guys on an older veteran deal or a rookie deal where they're going to be cheap for Howie, and they can just plug in beside Reed.
If the Broncos are going for a fire sale, I'm looking for Patrick Surtain. I'm calling them for him, and I would take Surtain's young on a rookie contract. I'd slot him in. Maybe Slayer, Bradbury can play safety. Who knows? But if the Broncos are selling, that's the first person I call for in that defense. I'm calling for Patrick Surtain. I think I would give up a 1st round pick for Patrick Surtain. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I'm really, considering a 1st round pick for him. There's a couple other people out there who I would consider. Just trying to think off the top of my head. But yeah, you mentioned the names, Connor: Justin Simmons, Harrison Smith, Jeremy Chin. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But the Eagles definitely have a defense that they can. The defense looked really good against the Rams after the first quarter, the first quarter and a half, where the Rams just couldn't do anything offensively. Jalen Carter had another monster game. He had a couple of sacks. Hassan Reddick had another monster game, a couple of sacks. But just looking forward, because we know we have that gauntlet coming out. And I don't think Howie would give up a 1st round for anybody. He loves having the 1st round picks. But if there is somebody that you would, Patrick Surtain is 23, 24. He is young. He's a top 5 corner in the league. And again, you saw him. He could be the top corner, and move. I know you have money under Brad, or you have money still on the books with Bradbury and Slay. Maybe move one of them to safety. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just thinking outside. I'm thinking my Madden mode right now.
You're getting extra creative with this one, but I mean, I would agree. I don't think he's given up a 1st rounder even for Patrick Surtain. It just doesn't seem in the Howie playbook, especially when he's still going to be stuck paying for Bradbury and Slate for at least 2 more years. That's significant dollar amounts. It's not something you can just peel off the books and see you later. We'll eat a bit of dead money and move on. They're pretty significant contracts. He invested in those 2 guys as being his corners for the next, at least this year and next year.
Yeah, I just hope that, say, Dallas doesn't trade for Patrick Surtain. That would suck. I won't lie. That would suck a lot. I'm just trying to. Is there anything else that you can think of, Connor, in terms of the game? Something that stood out to you? Well, Gary has a
Great.
question.
I
What do you
mean,
think? What do you think is wrong with the red zone offense? It's a great question because last year they scored at they had I think the number one red zone offense, and now they're in the 20s, bottom 20, if I'm not like 23rd, 25th, 27th, something like that in red zone. Um, I don't know. I have no explanation. It's something that they definitely need to fix. Obviously, we mentioned it before. We have a lot of trust in Jake Elliott, but I don't want Jake Elliott out there kicking field goals all the time. I want 6 points on the board. I don't want three.
yeah, no, I agree. Like, I mean, when I'm watching out there, it just doesn't look like they're drawing up the right plays. They just don't have the right situational offense in place, and I don't know what it is. Hopefully, more Dallas Goddard use means that they will become more effective in the red zone. Also, I think getting Kenneth Gainwell off the field inside the 20s would help because, I mean, he pretty much burn it down, giving a guy 2 or 3 yards, and then you're just second and 6 or 7 or third and 6 or 7. And here you go. Now you got to throw the ball and make a play, drop a play that's going to work. So I think situationally, they still got to figure it out, got to figure out the right play calls and stuff. But yeah, it's very perplexing that this red zone, they can do so much in between the 20s, but they can't do anything once they get within the 20 or not a whole lot of anything. Why don't you do
They brought the tight
screenplays?
end screen back.
Yep, they did. They brought the tight end screen. They've done some plays like that. It just feels like they've kind of moved away from screenplays a little bit in hopes of getting a bigger play or moving the ball down the field a little bit more.
Well,
I don't know
they
what it
did
is,
one
but
to Quez, and Quez didn't run up the field. He ran to the outside. Quez missed the block. Again, like Zach Pascal was really good last year with
yeah,
blocking.
part of me is curious about that because we never really replaced the Zach Pascal role. We just got Zacchaeus is not Zach Pascal. Quez Watkins is so far from Zach Pascal. I probably would have kept Zach Pascal over Quez at this point. But I mean, ultimately, yeah, like maybe we're missing an element of the offense, especially on the screenplays where they just don't have the same confidence yet in running screenplays, and they just got to figure out a different strategy for how to use them. But I mean, I don't necessarily believe screenplays are the most effective red zone weapon, anyways. I mean, you're relying a lot on yards after the catch and catching some good blocks and stuff. I just think it's situational. I think they got to figure it out. I think they got to get the right personnel on the field. And I mean, the right personnel is really just seemingly get Gainwell off.
My least favorite play in the red zone is when they do, and the Eagles don't do it much, but when I see other teams do it, even in college, like they cut half the field off. They'll sprint the quarterback out to the right or to the left, and there will be one receiver on that side with like 2 or 3 defenders. It's like, why? Like you cut the entire half of the field off. So, but we'll see. Again, they got Goddard involved last week. AJ Brown could start getting involved again in the red zone. We'll see. Maybe go to a. You think we need another receiver? What type of receiver though? Like, do we need a speed receiver? Because if that,
I know there's a lot of people talking about Mecole Hardman, but I mean, Mecole Hardman, he might be a slightly more effective Quez Watkins, but I mean, I think we just need to get Zacchaeus on the field a little bit more because he's done so much with so little. I think we're just not giving him a fair shake of opportunity.
I do agree with Gary in terms of we need a receiver because we really only have 4. If something happens to one of the top,
we know Britton Covey is not a receiver anymore. We can accept that.
So like they would need another receiver for depth purposes. If something happens to Brown or Smith, or we saw when something happened to Watkins, they put Covey out there like was that against Washington or was that against Tampa? I don't remember. They put Covey out there. It's like, what's Covey going to do? He's not a receiver. So I think they do need one for depth purposes, and it won't be like a big time. Like I would like Jerry Jeudy. Say that again, the Broncos, if they go out there and they do a fire sale.
But that won't happen. We know that's just not going to happen.
I'm just saying.
You're looking for a depth receiver. Unfortunately, that's the dream receiver. To bring in Jerry Jeudy would be like the dream. Imagine. I don't mind Renfro from the Raiders. That would be smart. Jacoby Myers. They brought Jacoby Myers in. They clearly prefer Jacoby Myers to Hunter Renfro, and then Devontae Adams eats up like 35% target share. So obviously, there's not much room for Renfro in Vegas anymore. But I mean, you definitely need some depth, but you kind of need to hope that it's an effective depth guy. And Renfro's proven himself. Like Judy's the dream. Renfro or someone like that would seem more the reality of a deal that we would get done for a receiver. And Renfro probably could be head for cheaper. Like if they're doing a fire sale and they're selling Cortland Sutton and they're selling, Jerry Judy, they're going to look for probably day two capital for those guys. Those guys aren't going to be guys that are going to go cheap. Whereas I think Renfro you could get cheap, and I'd be okay with that. I think he would be I think he'd be more effective than Zacchaeus and Quez Watkins. Easy. It doesn't take much to be more effective than Watkins, but
yeah. What's up, Mr. Crockpot? What's up? Is Jalen Carter an All-Pro this year? Definitely playing like one right now. It's only 5 games. So like,
could it be like an All-Pro with
push back on all this All-Pro talk because a lot of has been thrown at this guy, and obviously he's a really good player. Why 8? Well, it's technically 7 teams let him slide all the way to the Eagles at 9. I'll never understand. But man, like the way he is playing, and he's smart. Like he was talking about after the game, he's like it was so loud. Like he figured out the snap count. He figured out when to go so he could get off the ball. Like if he keeps playing like this, obviously he's going to be an All-Pro. I'm hampering expectations right now, not because I don't think he can't do it, because I know he can do it, but I don't want to throw all those expectations of being an All-Pro year one on Jalen Carter.
No, I agree with you. The expectations are high. I think he'd be an All-Pro with one of the lowest snap counts ever at the rate he's going. But I mean, he's playing at that All-Pro level. Hopefully, he sees more snaps. I think the number of snaps is something that could hamper him from getting the All-Pro nod, which would suck. It doesn't make any sense at all. But ultimately, I feel like, I'm definitely going to taper my expectations a little bit too, but he's definitely all we expected and some. And like you said, his technique, his power, his intelligence, he's just an all-around really good football player. We know the reality of why teams passed on him. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it's a business, and they don't punish people for what they did before they came to the NFL. It's about what happens once you're in the NFL.
If he got drafted by somebody else, if he got drafted by the Bears, by the Falcons, is he still as productive as he is now with the Eagles?
I think he could be. I think he's that good. I think it helps. I think it helps where he is. He's in with one of the best front fours in all of football. So I mean, I get it. There's lots of depth. They play their DTs differently than some teams like Aaron Donald's out there almost 100% snaps. I don't think you're ever going to see defensive tackle out there for 100% snaps as an Eagle, even if it's Jalen Carter or Jordan Davis in years to come. That's just not how they roll with their defenses, and they know how to have an effective front four, and that's fresh legs at all times and lots of depth. So we'll see. But I mean, ultimately, I think he would have been maybe not equal, but he would have been good. But you would have seen him on the field a lot more if he was a Falcon or a Bear than as an Eagle. So we would have gotten a real true picture of that.
Yeah. Gary says I would trade Barnett for a better pass rusher. I don't think there are teams lining up for Derek Barnett. I don't know if you'll be able to trade him for a better.
If you're trading Derek Barnett, you address another need. You don't need another pass rusher. Like I think you throw him in a deal that gets you the wide receiver or that gets you like Renfro. That deal makes sense, Renfro, for Barnett and something, because obviously Chandler Jones is gone. Max Crosby's tearing it up all by himself over there in Vegas. So that makes sense to me. Barnett and something, because there's got to be the plus on our side. For Renfro, I'd probably do that if you can get that.
Yeah, that actually might work out.
But if you look, we don't have a lot of draft capital. So
I want Nolan Smith getting Derek Barnett snaps. Like Derek Barnett's still getting too many snaps for my liking. But so Connor, before we kind of went on this question,
anything else to say? Yeah, so Britton Covey is still legit. He had a couple good punt returns there. And Jake Elliott is all pro, 100%. Jake Elliott is the best kicker in football right now. I don't think there's any kicker that's given. I think there's a stat out there. He has more points by himself than the New York Giants, and we pick at the Giants, but I bet we have more. He has more points than a couple other teams as well. I don't think it's just the Giants, but the Giants are terrible.
Miami, they did just trade for Claypool, so I don't know if they have a need for Berrios. I don't know if he's
I'd
available.
prefer Renfro. Like Barrios would be more towards the bottom of my trade for
Berrios
list.
can also
Honest.
return kicks and punts, right?
But I mean, he'd be a kick returner. There's no way you kick Covey off his position at this point. Covey would have to go on the worst stretch of life, which we've seen. But I think he's kind of got himself into the role now where we're not going to see that bad of a regression from him. So I prefer Renfro. I'm on board for Renfro. He showed us he can ball out and have a really good season as a number 2 wide receiver. I think he could be equally effective as a number 3.
I saw what he did in the slot in college at Clemson because he caught a game-winning touchdown against Alabama with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. So I still remember that game. All right. So let's move to the unheralded player of the week for week 5 in the NFL. By unheralded, we don't want a superstar. We want somebody kind of under the radar, somebody that may have come out of nowhere. Do you have somebody, Connor?
I do. I have Robert Spillane from the Vegas Raiders, the linebacker. He had 9 tackles last night and 2 interceptions. A linebacker with 2 interceptions. That was a pretty impressive game by him.
Defensive end had an interception. Hutchinson had an interception.
Yep.
Week, I think.
And the Raiders had a really big win. I mean, it's just giving the Raiders hope that they can be something that they're actually not. They really got to get rid of McDaniels and move on. I don't think he's a guy. He's horrible. He's just trying to create another version of the Patriots. And as we see without Tom Brady, look at how Bill Belichick is. He's a terrible drafter. I know a lot of discussion is stemming from, when did they last draft somebody worth talking about? And there's really not many. He's a terrible drafter. He reaches all the time. And the Vegas Raiders are looking very eerily similar. And they really shouldn't continue down that track. They really got to change something there. So, but I'm going with Robert Spillane.
I'm going to go with Zach Moss. He had 165 yards rushing.
He did him while he can before he gets buried behind Taylor.
Exactly. And then the Colts just paid Taylor, right? 3 years, $42 million.
So this was it because Taylor just came back from being off for 4 weeks. You know that this is just Moss getting his touches in, and he's going to get buried behind Taylor soon. Now, you don't pay Taylor like that to have Moss do this.
Oh, yeah. And Taylor only had 6 carries, but he's just getting back. Got to get his legs under him. But Zach Moss had a really, really good game for the Colts, who are 3-2 right now, and they are, I think, one game behind. Let me check real quick.
Minshew Mania is about to take over there, so that'll be interesting.
Has a shoulder injury.
Yeah, 4 to 6 weeks.
Shane Steichen's doing a good job. Maybe is Shane Steichen the reason why our red zone offense isn't that good this year? Like, he's not here. Could that be a reason?
Maybe I'd have to look at how the Colts are doing inside the red zone, but I mean, it doesn't take much to be more effective than us right now. So
that definitely doesn't. Gary, what do you think the size defensive coordinator? Yes, we talked about that earlier. Great adjustments by Sean Desai, figuring out how to stop after that first drive where Cooper Kupp had like 6 catches or something like that. It was ridiculous. Him and Puka Nacua didn't do pretty much anything. After that first drive, they had a couple catches. Nacua had a touchdown against Bradbury. Like, he got off the line. Bradbury was in good position. It was just a great throw and a great catch on the Rams side. You got to give credit where credit is due. But yeah, so I'm very impressed with the side. We saw adjustments by the side that we wouldn't have seen from Gannon last year.
100%. And I never thought he was bad. So is he starting to get better? I never thought he was bad. He's a super smart defensive mind. He's a really good defensive coordinator, very much sought after. Comes off a good tree of head coaches or defensive coordinators that he worked behind. So, I mean, definitely, like, I think he's going to just continue to get better. And he made, like you said, he made adjustments that I can guarantee you in that situation, Gannon was still going to be playing 10 yards off. And in third down situations, I did notice he played one guy off all the time, but that's okay because he had other guys being up and in the face of like Nacua or Tutu Atwell, making it so you have that one target that you could throw to, but it makes it a lot harder when you have less options to throw to. So, and just throwing it out there. So the Colts have a 56% red zone conversion rate. They're 16th in the NFL. They have 9 touchdowns on 16 red zone visits.
And we're 20. Where are we at? 20th, 23rd, 24th?
I gotta look this up now. I gotta look this up quickly before we go on our merry way. I'll look it up for us.
I know we're in the 20s.
We are. Oh, missed it. We are 27th.
27?
We have a 42% conversion. So we have 1 less red zone touchdown than the Colts and on the same amount of red zone attempts. So it's still early in the season, so that the number looks like really bad, but it is still not that great. We're still 27. So is the answer Shane Steichen? Well, the Colts offense is nothing compared to ours, so it's kind of hard to compare your apples to oranges here. But
the Eagles have better weapons than the Colts have. A better offensive
and
line
a better quarterback. Anthony Richardson is not the better quarterback.
The only thing that the Colts have better is Jonathan Taylor. And maybe Michael Pittman would be our third receiver. And
they haven't had Jonathan Taylor. So they've been doing this with Zach Moss, who's been an extremely effective weapon. So
exactly. So yeah.
But here we are in the red zone throwing out Kenneth Gainwell, who gets us 1 or 2 yards and doesn't make any worthwhile catches in the red zone. But I digress. I will stop hitting Gainwell with these terrible words in the red zone. Just please, just make the change. Make the change. Stop.
We'll see what happens. If it's a blowout, then you can throw Gainwell out there so that we can save Swift. The Eagles are 5-0, and they get set to face the New York Jets, who they are 12-0 lifetime against. The Jets have yet to beat the Eagles, and I was worried about that game at the beginning of the year with Aaron Rodgers. Not so much worried with Zach Wilson, but
I'm still worried about that turf. That turf swallows people, man.
I hate that field. Yeah, so we will be back on Friday evening to talk about the Eagles and the New Jersey Jets, because they're not from New York. They're from New Jersey, the Meadowlands. That bothers me. But yeah, yes, the Eagles are 5-0. Dallas is 3-2. The Eagles have a 2-game lead in the division. If I had to pick between San Fran and Dallas to win, do you want to be the only undefeated team, or do you want to have a comfortable lead in division? I was taking a comfortable lead in division all day, every day.
That was embarrassing
awesome.
the talk now of Micah Parsons saying we're still on that level. I'm sorry, you can't say that after you get you can be on that level if you lose by 7 or less. You lost 32. By what was it, 32? You can't. Don't make comments right now. Wait until the playoffs, and if you face them, try and prove it again. Make your comments then. But who are they missing? They're not even missing that many players. Their offensive line's a little banged up.
Their offensive line, they had all 5 starters.
But before the season they lost 1 or 2 for the year or something. I thought maybe I could be wrong. Oh yeah, I could be wrong.
Trayvon Diggs is out, but he shouldn't one. Well, I guess I shouldn't.
We watched Trayvon Diggs give up 1,000 yards.
Lane Johnson makes up a big difference if he's out of the game for the Eagles. So I kind of understand that.
But the difference there is Trayvon Diggs has given up 1,000 yards. Sure, might be able to get an interception or 2 in a game, but he can also give up 100+ yards in a game and cost you as much as he is good for you in that position. But that was embarrassing. I'd love to go off on that game for a while. I hated seeing the 49ers win, but I knew that was the best outcome for us. It had to be that way.
I'm hoping it's not going to happen, but I would love for the Eagles and the Niners both be undefeated when we face them on December 3rd. I just hope both teams are healthy so that when we beat them, all that talk that the Niners had after the NFC Championship game, they can finally shut the heck up. But
Debo's comments of, whoa, we were playing with 10 men. Oh, come on now. Come on now.
Maybe
protect your quarterback and you wouldn't have to worry about it.
Reddick with a backup tight end. Doesn't make sense. All right. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. You can follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. And follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports or EOPsports.com. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.